Do you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is meant to be interactive. This is a course. This is not like the other webinars that would keep you from being engaged. I want this to be a fully immersive learning opportunity for everyone who is here, because I want to impact and change the course of your lives if I can. So with that, I will go ahead and get started here. So the title of this course is Scrum Refresher Course and What to Do Next. The emphasis really on being an overview of what Scrum is. I want to first go over who this class is for, so you know if you're in the right place, if you really should pursue or continue with this course. This is for certified Scrum Masters. You've written the exam, you've passed the test, and you are certified. You want a refresher, you want to get yourself back in the game, maybe you want to apply for jobs, this is for you. If you are willing or interested in Scrum and want to make a switch because you've heard of it, you know about it, and you're curious about it, this is for you. There are some people who want to learn Scrum, want to know about it, but don't necessarily want to work as a Scrum Master. They may be entrepreneurs, business owners, or even managers, executives. This is for you to understand Scrum and apply it in whatever context you want to apply it. There are IT professionals and managers that are part of organizations that use Scrum and may be involved in transformation and agile processes similar to Scrum or Scrum itself. If you fall in that category, then this is for you. Essentially, what this means is Scrum is for everyone, but how we use it may vary. Now, who is this not for? And I stress on the not by virtue of how I work and how I relate to those I work with. I want commitment, full commitment, not partial commitment. Not up to 20% of those who signed up for this webinar are on here. And that tells me that there are many of us who are interested, but our actions do not follow through. So if you're unable to commit to work with a development team, then learning Scrum the way I teach it will not work for you. And if you want to learn and continue with my learning process, you have to be willing to do the work. Making over $100,000 a year is not given to everyone. And companies don't pay big money for Scrum Masters because they do nothing. It is a lot of work. It is not easy. So we should be willing to do the work. There are some people who want to make a switch to Scrum in an unethical way. They want to lie on their resume. They want to lie about their experience. They claim to have worked for Apple and Google and Microsoft. The way I work, the way I teach, I do not work or teach based on a lie. I don't do anything in my life based on a lie. I refuse to work that way. I refuse to teach that way. And if you want to continue further, be it help with your resume, help getting a job, if it is unethical, I will not be the person to work with. Nonetheless, I'll teach you the theory as best as possible. This is a 2-week program, a 2-day course. So today we are going to go over some of these agenda items. We'll go over who I am and why you should listen to me. We'll go over lesson 1 and possibly lesson 2. Lesson 1 is Agile Values and Principles, and lesson 2 would be Scrum Theory and Overview. Lesson 3, which is more involved role-wise, we'll go over the 3 roles in Scrum: Product Owner, Developer, and Scrum Master. Most of you are familiar with the Scrum Master role. but there's the product owner and the developer role. We'll talk about those. We may start talking about them today, but we will finish tomorrow. Tomorrow is when it's going to get really interesting, and I'll try to take away the boredom today by throwing in some practical elements to how I work and what I do, so that this is not just theory. This is theory with an idea of what the practical will look like. So tomorrow we'll go over the tips to get certified, resume and job search tips, and how to get hands-on experience. If you stay on, then you will richly benefit from what I have to offer. Even if you don't talk to me, you don't engage me, you don't deal with me for the rest of your life, by the time you're done with this program, you have enough to get you started, which is what I want to accomplish today. So I'll start with a little bit about myself and why you should listen to me. I got into Scrum by accident. And I'll say by accident because I didn't really know about it. I started out as an entrepreneur. Prior to being an entrepreneur, I studied engineering, electrical engineering. I got my master's, and then I decided I'll join the US Army. I served as an officer for 7 years. And as an officer, I worked with satellite communications, networking, and everything in between for a signal communications brigade. But I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So when I left in 2011, I decided to launch an app, and I started working with developers all over the world, Europe, Africa, Asia primarily. I raised over $400,000. I take that back. Over $200,000 and $250,000 making mistakes. I raised that money from friends and family from 2011 to 2015. And I went through mistake after mistake, working with developers, some good, some bad, and in between. But then in 2015, after I lost over 250,000, a friend asked me, "Do you have a Scrum Master?" And I said, "What's that?" I heard about it, but I didn't quite know. And then I started reading about it, and I said, "This is what my development needs." So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll raise more money." So I raised more money, another $150 or so $1,000. And I got to developing my app the Scrum way. I engaged the developers I knew, some in India. And by 2017, early 2017, I launched my app on the App Store. So now what? I was out of money, out of cash. So I had to park the project. So what do? I went back to the companies I was working with, the small-time companies, and I said, "Okay, I need money. You don't know Scrum. I could be your Scrum Master, and I could work with you and your clients." So I became the bridge between these companies, mostly in India, and their clients in the US, acting as a Scrum Master. The money was not constant, but I was managing. Then by 2019, I said, "You know what? I'm married, I have a son, I need money. Let me go get a job." And I said, "Okay, I know about Scrum, I've been Scrum Master, I'll get certified." So I picked up my books and I got certified. Applied for jobs, bingo, I got the job right away. It didn't take long. So from 2020 till now, I have gone through all the levels of Scrum work, Scrum mastery you can think of, from one team to multiple teams to program level to agile coaching level, enterprise level, etc. And what you notice here is you notice all these certifications on the bottom. Your PSM or your Scrum Master certificate is just one certification. If you're going to make it in this industry, you need multiple. So what you're going through is just the beginning. There is a long road ahead. Absolutely long road ahead. So here's what my co-workers have to say. I am a good Scrum Master. I have been a good Scrum Master, and I know what it takes to be good. The greatest compliment I have received as a Scrum Master is for people I worked with 3 years ago to come to me and say, Since I had you as a Scrum Master, I've never had a good Scrum Master again. And these are some of the things I've heard. Not from one, not from two, not from three, repeatedly, because I take my job seriously. There are people out here who will tell you, get one job, get two jobs, get three jobs, work remotely, and not be good at any. What you see right here is an immediate impact I had when I started working. And it reads here, this is a write-up that one person had, another manager gave to my boss. And it says, I'll read real quickly for those who may be multitasking and cannot read. I just wanted to write up something for Heine, especially as you said in the flow down just now, these last 6 months in total remote operations haven't always been easy, especially as the team has grown so rapidly and many have not had the chance to meet in person. While I know kudos are generally reserved to successes on the program that align with meeting a program goal / milestone, or another significant accomplishment that might be across teams and outside of people's expected tasking, I wanted to call out Heine's contribution to employee engagement, which is just as important. I had a chance to attend Sigma's water cooler chat on Friday and was very impressed, not only due to the turnout Heine gets, but the way he engages the team is commendable. He organized a fun game and we had a very friendly and fun competition going last Friday. So I'll stop out here. This is the impact that a Scrum Master should have. Beyond working as a Scrum Master, you have to engage your team, and we'll talk about that as we go along. That said, I want to transition into why we are here. Introduction to Agile and Scrum is the first part. I promised you something. I promised that I will try to be as engaging as possible, and we will have a chance for questions. We are going to go through my Agile and Scrum lesson from my actual class. This actual program is a 6-week program over 30 learning. So what we are getting here is very condensed. Nonetheless, I'll go through the exact curriculum. I may just speed things up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing and I'll make things a little bit more exciting before we go into the Agile values and principles. What I didn't tell you when I talked about myself is, aside from my previous entrepreneur experience, I have also recently founded a company called QSlot, an actual application that we are working on now. And if you choose to join the program, you shall continue on as a Scrum Master with hands-on experience. I'll talk about the process tomorrow. But while I stop sharing, permit me to share a quick visual of what this application really is, what the application does. We're going to take a look and get familiar with the application that I am working on now to release over the next few weeks, and you may have a chance to be a part of as well. So here we go. Not many people have seen this screen, but this is it. It's called QSlot, and it's a scheduling application, which is expected to launch in the next few weeks. And I have Scrum Masters helping to work this application and developers, of course, working remotely to get this application done. It's a scheduling application. If you use Calendly, you may be familiar with it. If you schedule appointments for your doctors or lawyers or whatever tool you have been using, you'll be able to use this. And we are all the way through to getting a good feel for scheduling an application all the way till, let's see, this is the experience. I schedule an appointment, a counseling session. I'll just say hi there and choose my name, choose an email, and schedule the event. So the event has been scheduled, but what this application does is something different from other scheduling apps. I'm going to scroll down. What do you see here? Do you want to pick a backup time? Choose an alternate time slot to join a queue. So what we do here at queue slot is allow users to schedule multiple appointments or multiple time slots for the same appointment. So if you miss your doctor's appointment, you don't have to call and schedule because you've scheduled 2, 3 backup options. So this is what the application does, and this is what we're working on now. And if you choose to be a Scrum Master for queue slot, then you get hands-on experience working on this application. So more on that later. We are going to dive back into what we are here for, which is learning Agile and Scrum. So we'll go into lesson number 1, which is the introduction to the Agile values and principles. The lesson for this course, this short overview, is lessons 1, 2, and 3, which are a summary of the 12 lessons that I have in my Scrum Master teaching lesson or program. What you need to pass the exam are lessons 1, 2, and 3. Lessons 4, 5, and 6, all the way to lessons 12 are optional. But I add these lessons because I want you as Scrum Masters to be as good as I am, if not better. Lessons 1, 2, and 3 will help you pass the exam. You could go on Udemy or many other learning platforms and get this information free of charge, or for $19, so to speak. But what they will not give you is lesson 4, information about teams and how to build a team. They won't tell you about how to create a good product, which I can because I've created products. They won't tell you about features and user stories. They won't give you information about how to prioritize the backlog. These are practical things that will help you to be a good Scrum Master. What does it mean to estimate story points, and why do we even do it? Then you need information on facilitating Scrum events. What does it mean to facilitate? You know what you should do as a Scrum Master, but how do you even go about doing it? Very, very important. And we talk about Agile metrics. We talk about Kanban and SAFe. These are concepts that are essential for you to know as a Scrum Master if you're going to be a good Scrum Master. But if you want to pass the exam, you only need lessons 2 and 3. But we will go over lesson 1, 2, and 3 in this short refresher course. So we can skip all of this. This is the course objective for those who want to take my course. But for you here, it is to familiarize yourself and even be re-engaged with the Scrum Master exam and internship or job opportunities that you may be interested in. Everyone here has the potential to be a good Scrum Master. But you can't be a Scrum Master like I am. You'll be a different kind of Scrum Master. But you can be good, you can be great, you can be excellent. And I'm going to go through exactly what I go through when I go through my lessons. There'll be a chance for questions. I have my co-host here, and he can, at the time, help with unmuting mics. You can raise your hands. The reaction should be okay. If you have a question, I will try to answer the question. But we will start with lesson 1, and we may get through lesson 2 today. Tomorrow, we'll go through lesson 3, which is about the Scrum roles, and then we'll finalize tomorrow with the practical elements of the Scrum Master career, getting a job, interviewing, getting hands-on experience, which most of you may want to get. All right, we'll dive into the Agile values and principles. We'll go over what these values are. And as we go through, I'm going to point out exactly and emphasize what you need to remember or look out for as you learn more on Agile and Scrum. We'll go over this thing called the Agile Manifesto, the values and principles. And I try to practicalize the learning so that not only are you getting the theory, you know what to do with the theory or know what to expect in the real world. All right? So we want to understand first the difference between waterfall and Agile. If you go online and you look at job descriptions, you'll see those two words, waterfall and Agile, and you need to understand the difference. So in this introductory period, probably for the next hour or so, we'll be going over these two methodologies to understand the difference. And I'm going to probe you with a very simple ask of identifying your favorite principle and your favorite value. And that is because you might be asked that when you interview. What's your favorite value? What's your favorite principle? It's a simple question, but if you're not prepared for it, you may stumble and that may cost you the interview. All right, so we'll start with basic definitions. What is a project? A project is an endeavor with a beginning and an end. So you could have a cleaning project at home. You could have a cooking project. You could have a project to serve a nation, a project to serve a community, a project to serve your family or serve your friends. But how does that relate to the software development lifecycle? Another key term, SDLC. If you are in the field or looking to get in the field, know the word software development lifecycle, because recruiters are going to ask you, do you know the software development lifecycle? It sounds like a fancy term, but it's actually quite simple. It's a method for developing software that consists of the how, the what, and the who. And there are many processes, many methodologies for developing software. So if you know one, you can answer and tell them confidently, yeah, I'm familiar with the software development lifecycle. If you never work with software, you can say, I know what it is and I know about it. And that usually is enough. So what are the phases of developing software? If you come to me and say, I want to develop a software for my application, I'm going to ask you, what does this application do? Well, I want it to be like WhatsApp. Okay, so maybe you want to do video, you want to do calling, you want to do texting. All right, fine. What color do you want? What font do you want? What style do you want? Those are the questions that are asked during the requirements gathering phase. So there are requirements gathering phases in most life cycles. Then there's the design phase. We want to design how it looks. Then we want to actually program. Then we want to test to make sure that it works. And when you know it works, then someone else can use it. That's the implementation stage. And while they are using it, they will come with issues that need to be fixed, replaced, improved, etc. And that is called maintenance. So that is a quick breakdown of the software development lifecycle. So why do you use the software development lifecycle? When you follow a structure or a pattern or approach to doing anything, it becomes easier for you to do the same thing with another project or another process or another implementation. So this SDLC is the basis for most project planning. Now, the difference between waterfall and agile comes in how they go about developing software. The traditional model is waterfall, and then there are other models, prototype, incremental, and spiral. Remember, I didn't tell you that you'll be asked about prototype, incremental, spiral. I said you'll be asked whether you know the waterfall model or agile. So those are the key words you should look out for when it comes to the software development lifecycle. But now we need to talk about the waterfall methodology. It is the oldest, it is the most used, it is the most common, so to speak. And it is the most common because it is the oldest. If you look at the picture on the left, it looks like a waterfall. It is a very linear way of developing software. You gather the requirements, you design, you develop, you test, you deploy, you maintain. When I started developing software in 2010 and I had my idea for an app, I gathered requirements for a long time. I wrote a business plan that was over 60 pages long. I had everything you can imagine in the business plan. I captured everything I wanted this application to do, how I wanted it to look, everything. Then I said, okay, now I need developers. And I said, okay, go to India. India is cheap. I actually went to India three or four times. Sat with the developers, paid them to develop it. They designed it, then they started developing. And I went through all these steps because this is what I knew. But then I ran into problems because even though I followed all the steps, there were issues that I faced because then I got stuck. Well, if I want to change something, what do I change? How do I change it? Oh, it was not in the requirements. Now you said you wanted this, now you want that. So I got stuck and it got very expensive. That said, there are advantages and disadvantages to it. Because it's the oldest form of developing software, is the most widely used, the most common, and the most relatable. People do that. In fact, if I ask you to do any single thing, you're probably going to have a waterfall approach to doing it. If I said, let's clean your room, you look around and say, what needs to be done? How are we going to do it? We need 2 people, we need 3 people, and you actually go ahead and do it. It's very linear, it's almost straightforward. But the problem is the limitations can be very costly because when you have a linear approach, you lose flexibility along the way. Even though it's simple to understand, it is not very easy to adapt or deal with changes. For example, when I started developing this app, my app was actually a chat application, a cross between WhatsApp and Groupon. And even though I had everything laid out, between 2011 and 2013, as things were changing, I had to change technologies as well that were not, in fact, I had to switch and adapt to things that were not in my business plan. And it became very, very expensive. And now that explains why I spent over $250,000. It's a huge amount of money. And by the time I developed this app, I had spent over $400,000 making mistakes. But I just showed you the Q-Slot application that I started working on. It works. It's been maybe 5 months we've been working actively on this, and it already works. And I've not spent up to $40,000 on it. So you see the difference. There are advantages to the waterfall approach, but there are disadvantages. It gets costly when you make changes. It's not very flexible, and you cannot accommodate an increase in scope very easily. So that was the problem I faced. And that's what led me to Scrum. Because when I was asked, do you have a Scrum Master? I started reading about Agile and Scrum, and I said, this is what I need. I need to learn a way to release the software faster. How do you start developing an app in 2010 and you release in 2017? It makes no sense. But using Scrum, we started working in November, so to speak. October was practically setting up. We started working actively in November, and here we are in April, May, with a usable version of the application. So now we want to talk about the Agile methodology. And this is what methodology Scrum falls under. Scrum is just one type of Agile methodology. And the whole idea is to separate the product into short delivery cycles. Instead of planning for one big release, you work in small increments and make sure that things work. And we have an iterative model of developing. It's the same project. So for example, on the screen, you see 3 iterations. If I ask you to join me in cleaning my house, for example, let's do a simple example. And I have 4 bedrooms, a master bathroom, master bedroom, basement, etc. And I said, okay, 10 of us are going to clean. There are 2 ways to go about it. We can stand. Before we start, we can plan all we want about what needs to be done. And then we can start, and then we can finish. That is the waterfall approach. The iterative approach is to say, okay, iteration 1 would be, let's focus on the kitchen. Let's examine the kitchen. let's identify what we need. Then let's clean it. And then when we are done, we say iteration 2, the living room. We can gather the requirements, we can plan, we can execute, we can test, we can check, and we can say the living room is done. Then we can say for iteration 3, let's do the basement. So you see, you break it down into little bits. It's easier to examine and it's easier to adjust. So if while cleaning the kitchen, you say, oh, we ran out of mops or cleaning supplies. Well, now you know before you get into iteration 2, which is cleaning the living room, you can run to the store and you can get the items you need. But if you plan everything to begin with and then you start working, you're going to be starting and stopping, and it's going to take time and cost a whole lot more than you bargained for. So the agile approach is to break things down into smaller chunks, avoid planning ahead too far into the future because things change and risks increase with time. So you plan in shorter increments or cycles and deal with the changes as you go. You adapt and you make improvements along the way. So that is the agile approach. This is another slide that gives you a slightly different perspective to agility. Define, build, release, and value. So this is looking at things from a different way. We say, this is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do it. This is how we are going to release it. And this is the value we are going to get. So when Amazon, for example, has that guarantee that if you sign up for Amazon Prime, you can get your package in 24 hours. They did not have that promise when they launched. It took them years to get to that process because they were refining and they were improving. And then they got to a point where they could actually release that value. So in order to promise on something, you have to actually work in little bits, be sure of what you're doing, be sure of the results before you actually get to the value that you say you're going to get. All right. That said, we'll transition to the Agile Manifesto, the values, and the principles. Remember, waterfall is linear. It's a linear way to executing a project. And when you hear, for example, project managers that are PMP certified, everybody knows PMP. That approach to managing projects is based on the linear way of developing projects. So you want to build your house, you hire builders, they go through the steps and stages of building your home. And at some point you come and say, oh, wow, my house looks nice. So it's a step-by-step approach. And the PMP approach, project management approach, is linear. They gather all the requirements and they hire the workers or the developers to develop and execute. And the project manager is responsible for delivering that project. But now, with software being the way it is, and the need for technology to speed up very quickly, in 2001, which is not too long ago, a few agilists and professionals decided on coming together to define a new way of working, to define a more optimized way to deliver software. And that is the reason why on your phone, you can expect to have an update every few months, sometimes every few weeks. Some apps may release updates more frequently than others because they are going through this Agile Manifesto approach of releasing software. And it only started in 2001. That said, you being a Scrum Master right now is relatively new compared to being a project management professional now, because the PMP certificate has been in the market for many, many decades. The old way of releasing software is not new. So getting into this field now, even if you're in a place like Africa, for example, where the trends are a little bit behind, it's a very good time to get in. You may hear people say the market is slow, there are no jobs, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Nonetheless, These 17 people from different software frameworks came together to find a common ground and emerged with this document called the Agile Manifesto. And this document lays the foundation of what it means to develop software in an agile way. But it can be applied to non-software projects. They started with 4 values, and then they ended with 12 principles. So we'll talk first about the 4 values. The 4 values are on the left in bold, and they value individual interaction. How do I interact with you? How do you interact with your team? How do you get them engaged? Remember the email that was praising me. Individual interaction is very important, and we value that over processes and tools. Processes and tools are important. How the team does the work and what tools they use are important. But as far as agility goes, they value that the interaction between the team more than the processes and tools, because if you give them the best tools and they don't interact well, the productivity will be compromised. In agility, we value working software over comprehensive documentation. Remember when I said I had a business plan that was 65 pages long and it took me $450,000 and 7 years to develop that working software? Compare that to this Q-Slot application we just saw that has a working version in under 6 months and less than $40,000. We value working software over comprehensive documentation. Documentation is good, is nice, but you have to see it work. That's more valuable. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We focus and value customer collaboration. One of the problems I faced when I was developing my app is contract negotiation. I reach out to the developers, wherever they may be, and I say, I want this app, and they say, it will cost you $30,000 for this, this, this. And I say, okay, I agree. Problem was, when we start getting into the work, we find out, oh, we need something else. We need more, we want more. And then they now say, oh, give me $5,000 more, give me $10,000 more. You didn't say you want this, we didn't agree to this. So you see how the contract negotiation was the biggest stumbling block to progress. Whereas if their focus was on collaboration, we'll probably have the software faster and maybe for less. So we focus on, we value customer collaboration over contract negotiation. I just have a call coming in 1 second. All right, for some reason, it was showing that I was sharing, but I was not indeed sharing. Microsoft Teams. All right. Okay, pardon me for that. Okay, so we're talking about the 4 Agile values and the 12 Agile principles. And with Agile values, if you go to an interview, for example, I know I was asked about my favorite Agile value. And my answer to that was, I value individuals and processes over individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And the reason I chose that was because I didn't have much experience with Jira, which is a common tool used by Scrum Masters. And my answer was, I'm not too familiar with Jira, but I am confident that I can be a good Scrum Master. So I like value number 1. So when you answer this question and when you think about it, consider your own context and your own experience and position yourself to give an answer that will impress the person you're speaking to or impress the person who is interviewing you. Responding to change over following a plan is very important, because when I started developing software, I had this elaborate 65-page or whatever number it was, business plan that I could not stick to because change was necessary. But because I have paid to do a certain bit of work with the developers, I was stuck responding to that change. I'm now torn between increasing the pay or increasing the cost and managing the little cost I have but really, really wanting the features I wanted to have. So it became very difficult to respond to change. But then there are 12 principles when we deliver software. There are 12 principles when we deliver software. The first one is satisfying the customer through early and continuous delivery of software. Remember when I said it took 7 years to deliver this app? We want to do a little bit as fast as possible. The faster we do it, the better. Then, of course, we want to respond to change, even late. We don't want to say it wasn't on the agreement, it wasn't on the plan. We want to accommodate. It is extremely important. We want to do it as frequently as possible. That is why your softwares, your applications on your phone get updates regularly, because we want to do that. It is an agile principle. Business people and developers must work together daily. In my opinion, it may not necessarily be daily, but it should be frequently enough to keep the project going. Principle 5, build projects around motivated individuals. Remember the individuals and interactions over processes and tools, the agile value. It is almost certain to connect an agile value to an agile principle. So you may be asked in an interview to talk about the values or talk about the principles. You may not need to know all of them. And I'll tell you this, in an interview, you don't have to claim to know these. You can say, I'm familiar with them, I've written them down, I just can't remember principle number 5. But you want to know what it means to live and breathe these agile values and principles. Number 6, we want to meet face to face. Remember, individuals and interactions over process and tools. That value ties with the principle. Yes, we want to interact, we want to engage, we want to motivate. That is a very, very important principle, which really breaks the concept of working remotely, because in the remote world, it is tough to get that interaction. Working software is the primary measure of progress. Yeah, I spent over $400,000. It took me 7 years. I didn't have the software. So what have I done? In many people's minds, I was a complete waste. I wasted my life. I wasted my time. I wasted my money. I wasted everything. So without the software, you have not made any progress. So we want to have it work. We want to see it. Then we know you've made progress. And if you're truly agile, note here, agile processes promote sustainable development. If you are doing what you're always doing in a manner that is not healthy, you're going to lose that capacity to deliver value. For example, if I asked you to study for an exam and you decide to study every night, all night, every night, to prepare for the exam, how long will it take for you to start suffering the effects of overworking? At some point, you're going to crash, you may get sick, you may lose your motivation, many things can happen. So in the agile world, we want to identify processes that are effective, smart, and enable the team to work in a healthy and enjoyable manner. That way, they can deliver the same amount of value consistently. Consistency is extremely important. We are looking for consistency. There's a word they use in the agile world. It's called cadence. You want a cadence, you want a rhythm, you want to be able to do the same amount of work consistently. So if I ask you to clean your house in an agile way, then you may want to budget or plan to clean the bathroom, the bedroom, the living room, the basement at a steady rate, so that as you are doing it, when you're done, and I say, let's go clean the neighbor's house, you know exactly how you're going to do it. You know exactly what to expect. You know exactly how long you can take, because you have that sustainable way of working. And without agility, it becomes very hard. Attention to technical excellence and good design is very important. If you are building your house and you just want to throw things together, you are going to lose. Even if you build a house, the foundation may be weak. So in technology, the architecture is very important, and the design is also very important. As you slowly and creatively work towards releasing that value, paying attention to the excellence in the technology and the execution, then it becomes easier as time goes on. You don't get stuck. Then principle 10, simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. I don't think up to 5% of people who are certified as Scrum Masters or even work as Scrum Masters can explain this. So if you're going to leave here with one thing that is more than most people know, it is principle 10, because it is extremely confusing. How do you call simplicity the art of maximizing what is not done? Initially, it may not make sense, but here is a simple explanation to how you can maximize what has not been done and how that can simplify your life. We'll use a basic example. Let's use cleaning your basement. You have all this junk in your basement or in your living room. You want to move your chairs, you want to move your tables, but then you also want to clean your bedrooms because you have this cleaning project going on. A straightforward way, a waterfall way, maybe, let's go ahead and do it, and you start doing it. Then you get stuck, you may need help, you call the neighbors, you come back, you get someone to move the chairs for you, you do all that stuff along the way. But here is how you maximize work that is not done. In the Agile way, we break the project down into increments. So we say increment 1, let's focus on the living room. Increment 2, we'll deal with the bedroom later. However, when you are cleaning the living room, you're asking yourself, do the supplies we have, are the supplies enough for the bedroom? We are not yet at the bedroom, but you're asking questions about the bedroom. Do we have enough people for the bedroom? Because your neighbor who was helping today with the living room may not be present for the bedroom. And oh, by the way, the bed in the bedroom is really heavy. You need more than 5 people to move it, but we are only 3 of us cleaning the living room. Remember, your focus is the living room, but you are considering what is not done, which is the bedroom, which you have to get to tomorrow or the day after. You might say, we are painting the living room and we need more paint because this paint will not be enough. Well, who's going to go to the store now before we start working tomorrow? So before you start working tomorrow on the bedroom, you already have prepared everything you need for the bedroom. So that is how you maximize work that is not done. You have prepared for it, you have planned for it, you have budgeted it, you have assigned people to work on it so that when tomorrow comes and you say it's bedroom day, what happens? John does this, Mary does this, Mark does that. Extra help comes along the way, and it's straightforward, it's easy, it's simple. In software development, we have something called refinement sessions, grooming sessions, where the team gets together to talk about what's not done. Most of us here use WhatsApp. At some point in time, WhatsApp had just text messaging. Then one fine day, you open the app, oh, you can do audio. Then another fine day, you can do video. And that's how these features get rolled out. But does it mean when the team was working on text messaging, they were not thinking about audio, they were not thinking about video, they were thinking about those things, and they were planning and preparing for it so that when it came time to develop the audio feature, boom, 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 straightforward, and everyone is happy. So that is principle 10, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. And of course, best architectures, requirements, and design emerge from self-organizing, organized teams. How do they emerge? When you don't plan ahead, you don't design anything or everything at once. In traditional project management, as I was doing in the beginning, to write everything down and have everything structured and designed, you find out that things are not always as you think they are. So if you're going to have a highly optimized product, you have to work on the structure and the design as you go along. Many people who cook know this. The best cooks do not follow a recipe as they read the recipe. The best cooks may have the recipe, but they taste as they go along. They check the consistency as they go along, and they tweak it with respect to what they observe. So too with software development, the best architectures and requirements have to adapt and be discovered by the team as the team works together. And that is why they have to be self-organized. Another definition that is very good to know, meaning they can work together to get the job done with little hand-holding. And then principle 12, at regular interval, the team reflects on how to become more effective. Regular intervals. For example, we have this project to clean the house. In the waterfall approach, which is the traditional project management approach, what do? You plan for the entire house. You gather the team for the entire house. Then you start working. And then at the end, you say, I am gone. In the agile way, you break it up. So you may now clean the living room and then say, oh, how did it go? Well, we didn't have enough supplies. Or one person may say, I didn't enjoy mopping the floor. I think I enjoyed painting the walls. So you gather all this information. So now by the time you leave the living room to work on the bedroom, now you have adjusted. The person who enjoyed cleaning the walls now cleans the walls because they say, well, I don't like mopping the floor. Another person may say, well, I enjoyed sweeping, but I want to try painting. And that is how the quality improves with time. So too in software development, using the WhatsApp example, the team while developing the chatting feature may work on one element. And then when they come together, by the time they start developing the calling and video capabilities, one person might say, well, I enjoyed working on the login page and the sign up page. And I didn't enjoy working on the back end feature or some other thing. And then they may now adjust the way they work. They may also say, well, we need more breaks. We need to work longer hours, or maybe we need to start work at 10 a.m. instead of 7. So now they don't have to work for 6 months without realizing that they need a break. They come after 2 weeks to discuss and they say, let's change this. Let's take breaks at 4 p.m. and not 6 p.m. And you see now that instead of waiting 6 months to find out that some things are not working, in 2 weeks, they've identified changes to make. And it becomes a lot more productive along the way. And of course, the people will be happier. So here are some benefits of the agile way of working. Superior quality, customer satisfaction, because when you work in the agile world and using the agile approach, you develop software faster. So there are many benefits, and what you see on the screen is just a subset of the benefits of developing software the agile way. It is extremely, extremely efficient. That said, the term agile is an umbrella term used for different frameworks. Scrum is the most popular, but there are many more. And each one you see on here, feel free to research them as much as possible. But there are different frameworks. Extreme programming is another very popular framework. And a lot of times you will see that because the principles and values are shared, the practices are also shared. There's principle, there's practice. So the principle is what is shared. The practice is what that particular framework expresses as an activity that supports a principle or practice. So these activities may vary, but the foundation of the value and principles are the same. But our focus is on Scrum, and we'll learn about Scrum. But be mindful and be aware that there are many other agile frameworks, Kanban being one of them, and also very popular. That said, Here is a YouTube video. I'm not going to play the video, but I may post this video or share this video as a link following this meeting so that everyone may watch a little bit or be aware before tomorrow. So watch out for your email for tomorrow's session. And oh, by the way, everyone here who has signed up will receive an invite for tomorrow's session, because we've set up the meeting for tomorrow, but the registration is not fully complete. So expect an email registering you to tomorrow's session. That said, we'll conclude this summary on agility, the Agile values and principles. The most important thing to remember is when you are executing as an Agile professional, the most important thing is the mindset, not following what the instruction is as far as developing software is. So you have to have a mindset to improve. You have to have a mindset to discuss. You have to have a mindset to sit down and say, how did this thing go? How did this go well? Some people are very good at it. Some people naturally will reflect and say, how did we do? What should I change? What do I need to change? Everybody does it when it's New Year's, right? 99% of the world will have a New Year's resolution, because you've looked back and you say, okay, what do I want to change this new year? Now imagine if you didn't have to wait till New Year. If you did that every week, wouldn't that be more impressive? You're going to see more gains, you're going to change much more, and you're going to be a better person. So don't wait till the end of the new year, to make a New Year's resolution. Make a weekly resolution and see the changes that you have in your life. With that, here is a tip. When you go for an interview and they ask you, do you have experience as a Scrum Master? You don't have experience, you only have 1 year experience. You want to convince that person that you understand that the most important thing is the mindset. So now you can say, I have an agile mindset because I don't wait till the new year to make a New Year's resolution. I have weekly objectives and weekly opportunities to reflect and look back and constantly improve myself. That demonstrates that you understand what this is all about, that you just have not had the opportunity to work as a Scrum Master. That would be a lot better than just saying, oh, I don't have any experience and I don't know about it. So when you position yourself, you have to look at, examine your life, examine your experience, and pull from the things that you have done to demonstrate this agile mindset. What does it mean to release software frequently? What do you do frequently? And what do you do to demonstrate that you have released value? It doesn't have to be software. It could be with your Boy Scouts, your Girl Scouts, your children, your spouse, the job you are in now. You can still demonstrate these principles and values. So capture all of these down in your resume and show how you're demonstrating all of this. You'll be shocked how many callbacks you get from recruiters. So this concludes the end of lesson 1. And we are doing well as far as time goes, and we will be ready for lesson 2 shortly. If anyone has a question, please feel free to use the chat to put your questions in the chat, and I can address those questions on the chat. But I've stopped sharing the lesson. We are done with the lesson, and we are ready to roll to lesson number 2. If there is anyone here with a question, feel free to use the chat, and I will be glad to respond to those questions while I pull up lesson number 2. And the second lesson is on Scrum framework theory and overview. It's a it is the crux of Scrum. So with this and tomorrow's lesson, you should be ready to watch some videos on YouTube, get some practice questions on Udemy, and get certified. But you will end up like a lot of people out there who are certified Scrum Masters and in the hunt for a job. because getting certified is only the beginning. All right, so now let me look for lesson number 2 for us to dive deep into lesson number 2. All right, okay. I need a thumbs up once we are seeing lesson number 2. And this is on the Scrum framework, overview and theory. Are we together? Lesson number 2. We want to have a good understanding of the Scrum framework, the relationship between Scrum events, artifacts, and pillars, and then consider applying Scrum to your life. You will see why I said in the beginning that everyone should be Scrum certified. Everyone should know Scrum because you can apply Scrum to everything you do. Actually, most things you do. If I don't say everything, I will say most. You don't have to work as a Scrum Master to benefit from Scrum. So we will talk about the framework itself. The framework is based on a Scrum guide. It's called a Scrum guide, and it was first released in 2010. Remember when we talked about the Agile Manifesto? The Agile Manifesto was released in 2001, long before the first version of the Scrum guide in 2010. Does it mean that companies were not using Scrum before 2010? Yes, they were. But this guide was not defined. The founders of Scrum had not established this version of the guide, and it was last updated in 2020. So when it comes to Scrum as a framework, we are less than 15 years into Scrum. So you are new, and you could be a driver of the industry in the next few years, particularly if you are under the age of 30 and you have potentially 30, 40 years of career. You can be a changer in this industry. But what is Scrum? It's a lightweight framework. What does lightweight mean? Lightweight means it is very bare bones. What you learn in the guide, in the Scrum guide, is essential for you to implement in order to fully be, to gain mastery. You must know how to add to what this framework prescribes. And that is the reason why you can use Scrum in healthcare, you can use Scrum in government, you can use Scrum in the public industry and the private sector, the non-profit sector. Everyone can use Scrum because it's a very lightweight, bare bones, skeletal approach to working. Software is the foundation of the guide, and everything is referenced to software, but it can be applied to non-software projects. It is very simple, and that is why anyone can be Scrum certified. And there are very many Scrum Masters out there who are certified because it is simple, but it is not easy to be a Scrum Master. In fact, the term Scrum Master is misleading because very few people are actually masters of Scrum. But you're expected to be a master of Scrum. That is why many jobs are hiring and looking for 3 years, 4 years experience because they want you to be a master. They want you to understand the framework and know how to apply it in any context because it is purposely incomplete. So you as the Scrum Master have to complete it and complete it correctly. There are relationships that are defined, but those interactions between the relationships, the product owner, Scrum Master, developer, all of those relationships are not restrictive. So you, the Scrum Master, have to bring to life the dynamics needed for the context in which you work in. So it's very, very interesting, and it's beautiful when you see it working. But it takes time. It takes time. It's not a one-day thing. It's not like painting your house green and changing it to blue. No. That said, we'll talk about Scrum theory. The theory of Scrum includes the 3 pillars, 5 values, roles, events, and artifacts. And all this information is from the Scrum Guide. The Scrum Guide that was published in 2010. The guide itself is less than 14 pages. So it's not, as a matter of fact, I can pull it up here. So you can see how lightweight it is. Here is the Scrum Guide. I have it handy. Until date, I still browse over it every now and then. It's not difficult to go through it. And yes, some people will tell you, study this, read this, pass the exam, and you make $150,000. No, it's not that straightforward. But that is the beginning. Understanding what is in the guide is important. Everything I have here in bold is something important and is testable on the Scrum Master exam. So you pay attention to it, maybe review it and research it if you want to. Scrum is founded on empiricism and lean thinking. What is empiricism? Knowledge comes from experience, what is observed. When you were learning how to cook, you follow the recipe. Do this, add the salt, add this, add that. But then as you got more experience, you created your own approach to cooking, the same thing you had a recipe for. So those decisions you made are based on what you observed. You taste, you check, and you change. So observation is very important in Scrum. Lean thinking is the concept of reducing waste and focusing on essentials. And when it comes to development, software development, the biggest waste is time. That is why one of the values is releasing software frequently. So if you want to release software frequently and you have a lean thinking approach, your question should be, what is stopping me from releasing faster? And if you can answer those questions, you can reduce the amount of time. And Amazon was able to answer that question repeatedly over time to get to a point that they could say, if you order a package today, we will get it to you tomorrow. Because they have reduced the time it takes to go from order to warehouse to shipping to delivery. You have to have an extremely lean approach for that. It is iterative and incremental. Iterative and incremental may seem like the same thing, but it is not the same. An iteration and an increment work together when releasing software. For example, when cleaning your house, if you have to clean the entire house, in the waterfall approach, and you plan to clean everything, guess what? You have one big iteration. You start, you finish. But we want to break those iterations down. So we go living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, etc. So those are the iterations. Now, what is an increment? We started with the living room. Living room, iteration 1. And you're done, you have an increment, which is the living room. Next, you go to the bedroom. So you have iteration 2. But guess what? The increment includes what was done in iteration 1 and iteration 2. So you've broken the work down in little chunks, but the value you've delivered includes everything that you have done. So ideally, as the iterations keep increasing, the increment also increases, but not necessarily, it may not increase. Because you can clean the living room today and redo cleaning of the living room tomorrow. How many iterations is that? 2. But how many increments do you have? Still the living room. So there's a difference. When we deliver software, we want to have the iteration approach, but we want to also increment, that is, increase the value as time goes. Next up is the definition of cross-functional team. Very important understanding to understand this. A cross-functional team is a team of individuals that come together and collectively have the skills, the expertise to do the work. So if you want to hire an event planner for your wedding or your event, what do you look out for? You may find one person who says, I can do it all. I'll take care of your decorations. I'll take care of your photography. I can take care of this. I can take care of that. What happens most of the time is that wedding planner has a network of people to provide all those services. So they are already a cross-functional team. If you go and hire help, 10 people to help you with your event, say your wedding, and all 10 can only do decorations, well, you're still left with pictures and videos to worry about. So it's very important for the team to have all the skills necessary to deliver the software. Finally, we want to deal with the events because things have to be done in a certain way. And in Scrum, there are events, 4 formal events and 1 informal event called the sprint. Remember, the first thing we learned about being agile is to break the work in little chunks or iterations. In Scrum, the word they use is sprint. So you break the word in little sprints, which means that in other agile frameworks, they may not necessarily use sprint. They may use other things. In SAFe, for example, they use the word increment. But is it really an increment? That's what they use. Some people may use iteration. But nonetheless, Scrum has 4 formal events that are contained within that increment, which means that if you have to develop software for 2 weeks, within that 2-week boundary, there are certain things that you do along the way. And every 2 weeks, you do the same thing. And we'll talk about this. The next thing to note, which is testable if you're not certified, is the pillars of Scrum. And the pillars of Scrum relate to one another and flow into one another. The first being transparency. If you have a team of people who are working together and to be cross-functional, to deliver value together, it is highly important for them to be transparent. If they are not transparent, the value delivered is at risk. Imagine having an event and having a team of people working to plan the event, and within that team you have the catering department and probably the photography and the decorations. You have all these these crew elements of members working together. If, for example, you have those who are serving the food, bringing the food for the program when the room is not set up or the event is not set up, and they're not aware of when things should be set. They arrive there and they say, oh, we have all these things to set up, but the table is not ready. There are delays. But when the team shares exactly what's going on, then it becomes easier to identify what should change, what should not change, what works, what should not work. For example, we'll use software, for example. You're working on the WhatsApp application, and you have a team of developers working together. And the work is stored on, let's call it Google Cloud or Gmail. And one person is working, and the other person, they are working together. Simple example. And the password, I changed the password because Google says change your password. And then I go on vacation and I don't tell anyone I changed the password. Someone tries to access and they cannot gain access because I've not shared what happened and that I actually took action. It compromises the ability for the team to work and diminishes value. It could be a problem, it could be information, it could be a need, whatever the case. It is important for the team to be transparent. You, as the Scrum Master, are responsible for fostering that transparency in the team. So when you're asked why this is important, is because You are expected as a Scrum Master. You are not expected to deliver software. You're not expected to write the code. You are not expected to program. However, you are expected to enable them to do that. So you have to foster transparency. How do you do it? Is the question. Next up, inspection. But what must be inspected? The work must be inspected. So if I ask you to clean your house, at some point I have to come and say, well, this is done. This looks nice. The invitees will love this. The guests will love it. And then we talk about it and we improve it, etc., etc. So you must be able to inspect the work. Just like when you cook, you must taste to see if you're on the right track. When you're developing software, you must check. You must talk about what you've checked. Because if you don't talk about what you've checked, guess what? Have you really checked? That said, we move on to adapting. If you don't inspect, you cannot adapt. And if you inspect without adapting, then you've done nothing. What good is it for me to tell you that the team has met and they would like to have 3 breaks in the day instead of 2? It may seem like a very minute change. But the team has sat down and said, okay, we want to have 3 breaks instead of 2. And you do nothing about it. Guess what? Morale just dropped. People start calling off from work. But you're the Scrum Master. You're not the one paying them. But you have to motivate them. So now you have to go to management and say, oh, the team had a talk. 2 weeks ago, we talked about this. We said we wanted breaks, but it has not really happened. What can we do to help them? That is what makes you a good Scrum Master. Not sitting down saying, do this, do this. No. Understanding what's going on. And when that team is impacted because change is not happening, you now have to provoke that change to say, okay, what will you need? You said you wanted this. Or you can hold the team accountable. The team said, oh, they are going to stop using Facebook and they are going to start using only LinkedIn to publish posts. And the team has had this conversation, but they've not done anything different. And then you're wondering, why are we not getting customers? Well, your customers are on LinkedIn, they are not on Facebook. You are not the one doing the work, you're the Scrum Master. But the team is not adapting to what is obvious. So now you have to ask them, didn't you say 2 months ago that you were going to stop using Facebook? I remember well. So when can you start? What's stopping you? What issues are in the way? Can I help? Maybe you don't have a LinkedIn account. Maybe you have to pay. Okay, you need to pay. Let me tell the manager. Let me tell management. So that is what you as a Scrum Master do to enable that team to move in the direction they are moving. Simple, but not so easy to do. Simple to understand. So here is what is called the house. Some people will call it the house of Scrum. It looks like a house because at the foundation you have empiricism and lean, upon which everything is built, which means you must have a mindset, an experimental mindset. If you're an entrepreneur here, you know that in order to be an entrepreneur, you must try one thing or another. That's empiricism. You must check, you must find out what works, and you must do it. Then you want to cut the time to executing. So empiricism and lean thinking are the foundation of Scrum. Then with that now, because it's about a team executing, it's about a team coming together in a short period of time to deliver value, to say, well, we're going to work for 1 week. We'll pause, we'll check, we'll see, which means they have to communicate. Transparency is very important. Then they have to inspect. What have we done? Have we done it well? Have we done it to standard? Is the customer happy? Is management happy? Then what can we do to get to where we want to be? So these are the 3 pillars. And on top of that, you have Scrum. And we will talk about how the Scrum Master now will connect the dots, because as a Scrum Master, you're called Scrum Master because you are expected to be the master of this framework, to understand this framework more than the developers, more than management. Why? Developers are there to do what they know how to do, develop software. Management is there to do what management wants to do, make money. You, the Scrum Master, have to be the bridge. And you're the bridge in an interpersonal way. enabling transparency, inspection, adaptation. If you can do that, you'll be an excellent Scrum Master. And it takes a lot of skill. We'll talk a little bit about that. But here are 5 values that you are expected to know when you write the Scrum Master exam. But more importantly, you are expected to provoke in your teams. You are expected to foster. And if you do not live these values yourself, it will be impossible to influence another person to live them. So when you learn these values, you have to ask yourself, where do I rank in my implementation or in living these values? If you cannot examine that aspect of yourself, you will not be good as a Scrum Master. It's not just to know it and pass the test. It's to identify with the need and position yourself as that vessel for execution. That said, we'll talk about courage. The team must have courage to do the right thing. If you have a team of people working on software, and I say, let's work on the login page. Everybody knows what login means. So we are working on the login page, and 4 people are working on the login. We have agreed. And the boss or the CEO or the owner comes and says, person A, I need you to take me to the store, or I need you to work on this. Do you have the courage? Does your team have the courage to tell that CEO, our goal is to develop the landing page. If we do this, this, or that, we may not hit that goal. Are you that kind of person to stand up and say, this is what we have to do, let's focus and do it? It requires courage, which means in order to focus, you must be courageous. And that's why courage is first and focus is next. Because without courage, you cannot focus on that goal to say, for the next week, we are going to work on the landing page. For the next week, we are going to work on messaging. For the next week, we're going to work on video calls. Why then does another person want to work on something else? You, the Scrum Master, have to say, hey, developers, you said you work on this. Where is this from? You don't need to know anything about developing a landing page or working on messaging. All you need to do is hear that they said they were going to work on this. And then you pull them back. Let's focus here. That is your role as a Scrum Master. And if you cannot focus, you cannot commit. You're focused on the goal. Our goal is to work on that profile. We want to work on the user profile. You open your WhatsApp page, your WhatsApp screen, you have a profile. You have a picture, you have a name, you have a location, you have a description. All right, let's release this. But can we commit to releasing it? Sure, if you are courageous and brave. Now, when the team is committed to doing it, they can only accomplish it if they respect one another. If I respect you and you respect me, then we can have a discussion on how we are going to work. You might say, hey, you work on uploading the picture to the profile. I'll work on capturing the address and information. Okay. Then I might say, well, I'm not familiar with this. We work together to release that product. You, the Scrum Master, now comes and says, well, these 2 developers don't work well together. One person disrespects the other. How are you as a Scrum Master going to get those 2 people to respect themselves to develop the software? You're not the one doing the work. You don't know how to do the work. But you have to promote these values in your team. How do you do it? You need experience to find yourself in these scenarios to navigate. And oh, by the way, when they respect each other, then it's easy to be open. I can't do this. You can't do this. You're having trouble with this. Let me help. The team is working together. You don't have to know how to write one line of code. I studied programming in school and I hated it. I still hate it. I have a lot of respect for programmers. But when I got my job and I started working, one Scrum Master came to me and said, oh, Heine, I'm reading this engineering document And I said, what document? They said, well, I'm reading through what the team is working on. And I said, how many pages is it? He said, well, 30 pages. I said, well, one, I've never read it. Two, I don't know where it is. Three, I don't care. But I'm a good Scrum Master. I'm an excellent Scrum Master. I don't know where the document is. I've never read it, and I don't care. Why? Because I am a Scrum Master and not a developer. But what I care is, do the developers know where the document is? Do the developers understand what is in the document? Do the developers believe that the information is valuable? And I can get all of that by sitting with them and asking. I don't have to go read it. And get them to talk, get them to discuss. And many times they might say, that information is irrelevant. Or then now I have to now say, well, who updated the document? Where did it come from? Whose information is it? Who put it there? When did they last update it? And I foster that open discussion. Then we can develop software. So your mindset has to be on these things, not just passing the Scrum Master exam. It's the totality of it all. And that is why Scrum is lightweight and meant for you, the Scrum Master, to add to it. All right, so we are winding down now. We are on the descent now. And then we'll have time for questions. You can put your questions in the chat in the meantime, and I'll address all of them. The Scrum team comes together to develop software, to release value. It's not only for software. You can have a Scrum team to do any kind of work, even non-software work. But the most important thing to know is that there are only 3 roles in the Scrum team: the Scrum Master, the Product Owner, and the developer. There is no sub-team. There are no hierarchies. Consider this. If you're a project manager here, you know that as a project manager, the developers work for you. But in Scrum, nobody works for anybody. You, the Scrum Master, are not above the developers. You are not above the product owner. Similarly, the product owner who owns the product, and we'll talk about that, is not above anyone. There is no hierarchy, no sub-team. Even though when we develop software, we might say front-end developer, back-end developer, the tester, the designers. Those are functions, but they are not responsibilities or accountabilities within the team. So when you write your Scrum Master exam, you're going to get a question that says, who is on a Scrum team? And then they'll list all these other names. Well, the right answer is Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Developer. They come together to focus on the product goal. So if I say, let's come together, let's build WhatsApp. The app we are developing is WhatsApp. That is the product goal. We want to develop a chat application. All activities, all engagement, all discussions, all effort go towards that product goal. And we must work together. So we must have all the tools or the resources to develop the software. So a cross-functional team has all the skills necessary to do it. So if you want a team of event planners, then you have to get a team of 8, 9 people who can do everything for the event, from scheduling to planning to executing and managing needs like video, sound, pictures, food, decorations, all those things. So that is the cross-functional element of the team. But then you also need a self-managing team. A self-managing team is a team that does not need any hand-holding. They can work by themselves. If you've ever hired a team of laborers to do anything at home or around your house, you know, you say, this is what I need, and they will decide on who's mowing the lawn, who is planting the flowers, who's doing this, they decide. In software development, is the same thing. The team will schedule the meetings, the team will plan the meetings, the team will decide all those things. So what then is the Scrum Master needed for if the team is self-managing? 2 things. 1, Your job as a Scrum Master is to take the team from 0 to self-managing. And 2, your job is to keep them at the level of self-management, which is the reason why winning teams still have a coach. When the Chicago Bulls had Michael Jordan on the team and they kept winning every year, they still needed a coach. But within that Bulls team, which is one of the most self-managing teams and cross-functional teams of all time, they had specialists and functions and they worked well together. So your role as a Scrum Master is to get the team to the level where they can work together well. And then that is why you hear people say Scrum is easy. You don't have to do anything. No. When I started working, I was extremely busy with my team. When I joined the team, meetings every day, one-on-one engagement, activities constantly. By month number 9, I could literally come to work in the morning, attend the meeting, fold my arms, and say nothing from start to finish. But I'm there because the team is discussing, they are taking notes, they are acting on the notes, they understand Scrum, they know what to look for, they are managing. They are saying, oh, when is our next meeting? They are no longer waiting for me to schedule the meeting. They go ahead and schedule it themselves. But I am present. I'm not on another laptop working a second Scrum Master job, because then I'm no longer serving the team. So what then do you do at that state? That's a discussion for another class. The Scrum prescribes that we want a self-managing team. It doesn't tell you how to get there. That's why experience is important. It tells you that the team must be small enough to remain nimble or flexible or agile, adaptable, and large enough to complete the work. So typically 10 or fewer, because communication complexity increases with size. The more people you have in a team, the more complex the network for communication. So the smaller the team, the better. So now the question is, if Scrum team should be 10 or fewer, how do companies like Microsoft, big companies, use Scrum if they have to have Scrum in a team of 10? There are other frameworks meant to enable large companies with engineering teams of 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 to work together to deliver software. So you now, as the Scrum Master working with a team of 10, delivering software, should now realize that you can work with 2 or 3 teams, you can work with teams of teams, you can work with management of teams, you can work with higher management of teams. That is why I say Scrum is an entry-level job. Entry level in terms of the level of the organization at which you work. You work at team level, which is the lowest level in an organization. But you're paid 100,000 a year because of the value you bring to that team and how you enable that team to make money for the company. That is why you're paid a lot. So with that, why get the Scrum Master certificate and end there? If you are here and you think the only thing you need is a Scrum Master certificate, you are on the wrong track, or you have been misguided. You need multiple certificates. As it is now, I am at maybe 12 or so, and I have not even scratched the surface of what I believe I need. Because in my mind, per my count, what I've written down, and I will encourage you all to do so, write down all the certificates you can think of, and then come up with a plan of action to get them. Because you will go from making 100,000 to 200 to 300 to 400, based on how many you have and how high up the organization you work, from team level to team of team level to program level to enterprise level, and so on and so forth. But at the lowest level, Scrum is for a team of 10 or less. And together work to produce that software and working with sprints. That said, we'll talk about the events and artifacts. What does the Scrum team do to enable efficiency This graph may seem very complicated, but I'll use the context of cleaning your house to make it easy, and then we'll talk about software. When you want to clean your house, you start with a list in your house. In the kitchen, you may have the kitchen floor, the cabinets, the walls, the dishes, etc. That's just the kitchen. Then you move along to every section. That list of everything that should be done in that house or for that house is the product backlog. And then when you have decided that you are going to start with the living room for that iteration 1, for that short period, be it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, here on the chart, it says 1 to 4 weeks. Yes, you can choose 1 week, you can choose 2 weeks, up to 4 weeks. But within that time, you must come together and say, we are going to work on the living room. All those tasks to do in the living room will make up the sprint backlog. And that sprint is that iteration you're saying, week 1, sprint 1, living room. That backlog, the list of tasks to be done in the living room, will make up the sprint backlog. Remember, you have a product, which is your whole house. And that product has its own backlog, a list of everything that should be done in the house. And mind you, you are going to be discovering stuff as you go along. You may realize, I didn't think I need to clean the carpet, but I need to vacuum the carpet. So these things keep changing, and which is why Scrum is good. Because you sit down and you plan. You say, okay, in order to clean this living room, let's come together in the first hour of the day. On Monday, we are going to plan how to clean the living room. Sprint planning. Then every day during the week, we are going to huddle together to talk about how we are going to work during the day. You come in the morning, on Tuesday morning, how do things go? Do you still have all the water you need? Do you have all the soap you need? Are your mops still working well? You discover. And one person may say, oh, I need this, I need that. You discover what you need along the way. Are we still going to be done cleaning the living room by the end of the week, by Friday? Those are the discussions that you have as the week progresses. So you hear the word daily stand-up, daily scrum. It's just a little huddle that the team has to talk about the work. So now you're cleaning your living room, you're huddling up every morning to say, how are things going? Do we need this? Okay. Then at the end of the week, you now say, all right, our goal was to clean the living room. Did we do it? How does the living room look? Is it nice enough? That is the sprint review, to review the work that was done. Then you review the work that was done, and you say, oh, I love it. The living room looks nice. Then you now say, okay, we've looked at the work we have done. Let's examine how we did the work. Now we move over to the retrospective. Now, when you're no longer looking at the product or the work itself, you're looking at how you did it. Did we take a break at 9 or did we take a break at 12? How long was the break? Should we start early or we should start later? Should we finish at 4 or should we finish at 6? It's no longer the quality of the work, it's how the work was done. With all of that now, you are done on Friday. You have cleaned the living room. You know the next thing to do is the bedroom. You have all this information now that you can apply to the bedroom. You've changed the start time. You've changed the break time. Maybe you're using different mops because they're more efficient. You have a cleaner bedroom. You finish the bedroom faster. So now you're in sprint number 2, week number 2, and you do the same thing again. You come, you plan how to clean the room. Then every day you meet and you discuss how is it going. If you cannot finish, then you let the owner know, which is the product owner. You let the owner, well, I can't do this. And the owner may say, well, don't worry about vacuuming the bedroom. No one really comes here. You can skip it. At the end of the day, you do the work you discuss. That is Scrum. That's it. Nothing more to it. These are the meetings that you, the Scrum Master, have to facilitate. But the product owner who owns the product, who's responsible for the product, is the person you go to for the work. Does this meet the requirement? Is this nice enough? Just like if you're helping your neighbor clean the house, you go to him to check, is the living room clean enough? if the neighbor says, "Oh, don't worry about mopping the floor," okay, but you're still doing the work. He owns it. You are enabling the people who are doing the work, and you are the Scrum Master. At the end of the day, everybody's happy. In the context of software, WhatsApp may have said, okay, in the beginning, sprint 1, for example, let's do the login and the usernames and the user profile. Week 1, they're working on that. They're discussing. They might say, well, we no longer like this green. Let's use a lighter shade of green. Or should we change the color? Should we change the font? They negotiate. At the end of the week, after they've had the review and they reviewed what they're working on, they have the retrospective. How should we do things next? Then they say, okay, sprint 2. That's the goal. Everybody's focused on messaging. All the work has to be done is related to messaging. They define the sprint backlog, which is the work related to what they want to do that week, and they work on it. You, the Scrum Master, are plugged in. You're not the one doing the work, but you're making things happen because they are focused on doing the work. If you hire people to clean your house and they run out of supplies, what can you do? You can run to the store to get them, or you can call your son and say, oh, on your way back, get soap. So that's what the Scrum Master does. Developers are doing what they're doing, and they no longer have access to YouTube. They no longer have access to Facebook. Well, you tell the person who owns the Facebook account, hey, developers need access. Can you change the password? Can you pay that bill? It has not been paid, so that the work keeps moving. Question is, can you do that as a Scrum Master? So this is it. These are all the events. I can talk about this. I've already explained them per the picture. So we can breeze over that. But everything you need to know for the exam is the sprint is a fixed length, 1 month or less. That period of time that you say we'll clean the living room or we shall develop the messaging, 1 week. The next week, you do something else. You do not change the time. You don't say, oh, we did 1 week for messaging, we'll do 2 weeks for audio, we'll do 3 weeks for video. Why doesn't the duration change? The reason the duration doesn't change is you cannot compare apples to oranges. You want the same period of time to be able to ask yourself, how fast are we working? How efficiently are we working? So you need that baseline to say, over 2 weeks, we've done this. For the next 2 weeks, we only did this. Then you can ask the question. You, the Scrum Master, can ask the question. Last month, you did A, B, C, D, E, F. This month, you did A, B, C. What happened? You're not the one doing the work. You're asking the question, provoking the team to discussion. And the team might say, well, we no longer have access to the internet. And this happened with QSlot when there was an outage not too long ago in West Africa, and the team could barely work. So we lost about 3 weeks of work. And quality dropped. And we may actually see that tomorrow when we look through how Scrum actually comes to life. But the sprint is that duration that does not change. Can the team at some point say, let's move from 1 week to 2 weeks? Sure. You can make a decision to say, I'm going to go from 1 week to 2 weeks. But once the decision is made, you have to work for a period of time. Just like if you want to clean your house, you might say, I'm going to use 1 day for the bedroom and 1 day for every room. Okay, so with respect to the sprint, we want to compare apples with apples. We don't want to compare apples and oranges. So in standard project management, it's like, oh, here's one big project. This is what we have to do, and we'll do everything. We want to do it in this time. We want to do it under this budget. We want to do it, stay within this scope. And project managers are stressed and putting this pressure on the team. In Scrum, is the opposite. We say, we are going to work during this time for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We are going to examine what we can do during this time. We are going to improve our efficiency with time. The more we can improve and change during this short period of time, the more we can produce. And that is why you have to refine the work constantly. You have to say, we are working on messaging. While working on messaging, let's think about the video or the audio, but the constant factor is the duration so that you can examine appropriately. Can the number of teams change? The number of members in the team? Yes, in reality, people get fired, people leave. But within all of that, you, the Scrum Master, has to ask the right questions. Why is the work not moving? Why did you do more over this period of time and less? But everything starts with planning. Remember, the sprint itself is that duration, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that contains all the activities, and that serves as the reference for inspection and adaptation. So you start by planning, just like anything else in any endeavor you plan. And that planning happens during the first day of the sprint. So when the sprint starts, you start with planning. And Scrum has defined what is appropriate for planning. 8 hours for 1 month sprint, usually shorter for shorter sprints. When you write the exam, you're going to get a question like this. How long is the sprint planning event? A, 8 hours for 1 month sprint. B, 8 hours for 1 month sprint. For shorter sprints is usually shorter. Both of them are correct, but which is more correct? Answer is the second one. You have to answer as is written in the Scrum Guide. What does it mean that it's shorter for shorter sprints? Which means that if your period of inspection is 2 weeks, you should think about 4 hours. If it's 1 week, you shorten the planning period as well. For the Q slot team, we usually use 2 hours of planning, and that sprints are 2 weeks. So we are within that period, which leads me to my next definition of time boxing. A time box is a period or duration of time for which an event happens, testable on the exam. And you may be asked at an interview how you manage the time box. Vague, right? But to manage the time box is to do your best to enable the team to stay within that duration that they have set for the meeting. So if the team says the planning meeting will be 4 hours, you, the Scrum Master, have to do everything in your capacity to ensure that the team can get all the value they need for planning under 4 hours. Which means if someone starts talking about the weekend Super Bowl, you have to bring them back to focus. You have to say, okay, we are running out of time, or we only have 2 hours. Say it nicely, you don't offend them, but you have to have that ability to bring people to stay within that time box. And it's good to know these time boxes are testable. Because the product owner, and we'll talk about the product owner is similar to the project manager, but not the same as the project manager. The product owner owns the backlog, owns the product, but it's at the same level as the Scrum Master in terms of accountability, because everyone is accountable for the product. In standard project management, the project manager is responsible. He's the one or she is the one who writes the reviews and who can be fired. A Scrum Master can't fire anyone on the team. The product owner can't fire anyone on the team. They are all the same. So the team comes together to plan. The product owner prepares and gets everyone ready. The team collaborates to say, what are we going to do? The team may say, let's do the messaging feature. And one person on the team may say, that's too big. Let's do messaging, but let's not do any file transfer in the messaging. And then they collaborate and they discuss and say, okay, we'll do messaging simple, but we won't add file transfer. No one can upload pictures. No one can share pictures. And they agree on what to deliver. The key is to deliver something at the end. Then based on that agreement now, they now say, how are we going to deliver the work? You work on sending the message. You work on receiving the message. You work on storing the message. You work on confirmation. The blue ticks that WhatsApp shows, well, somebody has to do it. You work on that. They work together to now divide the work. And then they say, you do it, you do this, you do that. So that distribution of work, the items that need to be done, all of that forms the sprint backlog. It includes all of those that form the sprint backlog. And during that period, as they have finished the planning meeting, they now leave to now do the work. And every day they have to check the progress. How well are we doing? Are we going to be able to deliver the goal that we set out for? Can we still deliver this messaging? Or maybe they said they are going to add sending of files. They might say, well, we may not be able to do file sharing. Okay, let's negotiate now with the product owner. Product owner, we said we're going to do messaging, but we may not do file transfer this sprint, and they will adapt and adjust and say, okay, we have a goal to deliver messaging, but we may not deliver all of messaging. Can we still say we deliver messaging without this or that? So the team has to meet daily and frequently. And this daily scrum is limited to 15 minutes. It's a quick check. They come together. This is what I'm working on. These are the problems I'm having. And then if they discover issues or needs that require a longer or more extensive meeting, they can set that up. You, the Scrum Master, need to make sure that it happens. You don't have to be there. It's for the developers. Even though most jobs will ask you, most interviewers will ask you, how do you facilitate a daily scrum? How do you do this? But you don't have to be there. But when I started with my teams, I was on every daily scrum. When they became self-managing, I didn't have to be there. I'll just check in. How did it go? Are there any issues? Or I may attend and I just listen in to see if they are within that time box. But only the developers must attend. The Scrum Master, the product owner do not have to be present. Very important to know for the exam. Then when they have done the work, they have worked towards that goal, they have the messaging feature, or maybe they don't have the messaging feature. Whatever it is, they must come together to review the work. And who must be there? Well, the people who want the product, right? So the stakeholders who want the product owner should be there. The stakeholders may be a client. Maybe you're developing the software for a client in the UK. They will be there to look and say, oh, is the messaging feature working the way I want it to? Remember, the team has worked only for 1 week or 2 weeks, and they're delivering just a little bit. So this stakeholder in the UK comes now to see what has been done. And the team says, we've done this, we've done this. Then they have to discuss. The person in UK might say, I know I wanted messaging, and I know I wanted files, but I think we can also include audio notification because, oh, WhatsApp is doing that. So can we do that? And then the team now says, yes, we can do it, or no, we cannot do it. It's a collaborative session. It's not a presentation, oh, this is what I've done. No, you discuss, what can we do next? All right, we've done the messaging. You didn't quite finish the file sharing. Can you do that next? The team might say, you know what? We want to do the video. We'll come back to that. Let the user start using the audio. It's a collaborative session. They're discussing the product. The stakeholder or the product owner might say, well, WhatsApp is doing this now. Let's not wait. Then the team will agree on what direction to go. Nonetheless, it is time boxed to 4 hours for a 1 month sprint. For shorter sprints, it's shorter. And we have the sprint retrospective, which is the culminating events in a sprint. 4 events: the planning, the daily scrum, the review, and the retrospective. The most important thing to remember about the retrospective is the difference between the retrospective and the review. The review reviews the product, what was done, and what should be done next. The retrospective reviews the process. How did the team work? How can the team work better? What went well in the way the team was working? What can the team improve so that when the team comes again the next Monday or the next day the sprint is starting, they can take all that feedback and immediately apply it. Time boxed for 3 hours for a 1 month sprint is usually shorter. Retros have been 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's not usually long, but it can be very interesting. And you, the Scrum Master, have to set it up. How do you get people talking? How do you get people to collaborate? How do you get people to discuss and say what's really on their mind? You'll be stuck in a meeting with 10 people and you ask them, what went well? Nobody says a thing. You ask them, what did not go well? Nobody says a thing. How can you, as a Scrum Master, convince 10 quiet people to talk? That's why you're paid 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. How do you get them to discuss about what went well and what did not go well and what to do about it. It is not straightforward. If you do not have the skills to observe, to listen, to identify, you're going to be very uncomfortable and you'll be fired very quickly. That's why many people are hired as Scrum Masters and they'll tell you something like this: my contract ended. It's a lie, they got fired. The contract may have ended, but why were they not rehired? Why did they not get another job? Because they just don't have what it takes. When my contract ended on April the 15th last year. I got hired April the 19th for the next job. It did not take long. When I put my resume out there, it did not take long. So if you have what it takes, it will not take long. Nonetheless, the retrospective is time boxed to 4 hours for a 1 month sprint, and for shorter sprints is usually shorter. Very important to have this. Oh, there's a mistake on here. The time box for the review is 4 hours for a 1 month sprint, and the time box for a retrospective is 3 hours for a 1 month sprint. So items for the retrospective, say you find out that you want to meet at 9 a.m. instead of 10. You may put that in the backlog and you might check the next sprint. Are we really doing it? So you don't forget. On the sprint, on the Scrum Master exam, you will, there's a high chance you get a question like this. Do you have to add all the decisions from the retrospective into the backlog? The answer is no. The team decides what to work on. The team decides what changes to make. They might have 5 changes to be made, but they only implement 1. The key is to implement at least 1 and keep making regular improvements. Then we'll breeze through Scrum artifacts. An artifact is, when you think of art, an artifact is what is produced, what is tangible, what can be appreciated. And in Scrum, every artifact contains a commitment. So the product backlog is a list of what the product is. If the product is a car, everything that constitutes developing a car is in that product backlog. But in order to do it, you must commit to building the car. So that's the product goal. The sprint is the subset. If the sprint is, we are going to work on the framework of the car and everything to do with the framework of the car only, the commitment to that would be the product goal. A subset of it would be the sprint goal, a subset of the product goal. And at the end, when you have worked, you have an increment, which means you have something to show. And every sprint, that thing you have to show keeps increasing. If you do not have a way to define that done to say it's actually done, the increment will not be quality. So you must have the definition of done to say this is done. For example, you want to clean the kitchen. You might say, in order to clean the kitchen, what you use to clean the kitchen must be put away. So if you have children and they've said they've done something, they've mopped the floor, but then the mops are still on the floor, the buckets are still on the floor, and you may come and say you're not done. And the child tells you, I'm done because I did it. How do you define done? Done involves putting the mops away. Done involves not only have you washed and wiped the dishes, you have put the dishes away. So in software development, it's the same thing. Done may mean you've done it, you've tested it, you've checked it, and you've deployed it to a certain location. You've deployed it to production, you've deployed it to testing, whatever, but everyone must agree on what done is. Then you have that increment. So these are the artifacts. And then we have details about the artifacts, which I already talked about. Important thing about the product backlog is it emerges. It is ordered. And I will show you an example of an emergent backlog and an ordered backlog. It's emerging because when you start cleaning the living room, you may not know in full all that needs to be done. Or when you start cleaning the house, you may not know. So too, when you start developing software, you don't know what it looks like. So you have to keep having items by item increasing on the list. But then you have to order them. What are we going to do next? How are we going to do it? Etc., etc. Very, very important. And I'll quickly show you, I think we have some time here. I'll quickly show you how a sprint backlog and a product backlogs look like in real life for the Q slot project. But you have to keep thinking about these things. Then there's the product goal. What do you want to do? Our product is Q slots, and my goal is to develop software for scheduling. That is the goal. So everything about the product is towards that goal, supports that goal. And the team's long-term objective is to release that goal. However, we break up the work into smaller pieces, which means that I, the product owner, I'm the entrepreneur, I own the product backlog. QSlot is my idea. But the people doing the work are the developers. So when I sit with them and we talk and they say, this is what we agree to do, that subset of tasks that they'll work on for 2 weeks is owned by them, belongs to them. I can't tell them how to do the work because they're the ones doing the work. So the sprint backlog is owned by the developers. It is a plan for the developers, and it is updated throughout the sprint because they may come to me and say, sir, you say you want to do this, that will not work. You say you want to do this may not work. And then we'll update as that time goes on. And then there's the goal. You break things to size to work during that short period of time. But what are you going to work on? That is the sprint goal. And the sprint goal is the commitment of the sprint backlog. Because remember, an artifact is something you can hold tangibly. When you go shopping, your artifact is your shopping list. Your goal may be to shop for dinner, to shop for the week, to shop for the month. See, that's the goal. But that artifact is that shopping list. So the sprint backlog is the list of the work items to be done in the sprint, and the team commits to the sprint goal, that subset of work that should be done to release the value. And this is a short description of the events and the artifacts, but we'll skip through that and we'll talk a little bit more about the increment. The increment is think of the word increase. It increases. It's an increase in the product as time goes on. So in sprint 1, you work on the messaging. Sprint 2, you add audio messaging or voice notes. So the increment is now the messaging plus the audio, which means that the team has to continuously increase the increment. So summary and conclusion, that is it for this particular presentation. I just want to pause for a minute. All right, so I'll stop sharing and I want to share the, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So I want to share my screen. I want you to see a product backlog for the Q slot project. Let's see. I want to share this so you can actually see how we maintain a backlog. All right. So this right here is what we use in Jira. And many of you may have heard of Jira. In Jira, these are all the developers doing the work. And we have here an epic, which is a term for feature. If you look to the left here, these are the features. Remember, the product is an ordered list. So this is all the work that should be done. This application you see right here for this Q slot, this is how we present this application in the work. If we look at, this is sprint 15, we're in sprint 15 currently. And right now we're looking ahead. Sprint 16 starts on May 13th. So we are discussing what could be done, and a developer requested, take a look at this. Let me open this. Let's make it bigger. Take a look at this comment. Please prioritize this ticket for the coming sprint. And I say, okay, done, added to backlog. So now these are the developers telling me what to do and how to do it. And I now add it to the sprint backlog. So we are maximizing the work not done. We are looking ahead, but we are in sprint 15. This is all the work that needs to be done in this sprint. Now, if we look historically at the reports, then we can compare sprint to sprint how the team is doing. And you can see that in sprint 14, this is what they worked on. Now, what happened as the Scrum Master, you look at this report, what does this mean? The team committed 47 and they completed 46. We'll talk about story points. But you, the Scrum Master, have to ask the questions and say, how come in sprint 11, they completed only 2 story points? What happened? How come in sprint 10, they completed only 10 story points? What happened? Then the team can tell you there was a cable outage in West Africa and we could not work. So these are conversations that happen as the team matures. But everything is centered around the project, the backlog. So when we look, it starts with the backlog. The product backlog, remember, this is sprint 15. If we collapse this now, we see the rest of the product backlog here. This is sprint 16, sprint 14, and the rest are in history. The backlog now is the product backlog, which contains all the work to be done. If you see here, some of this work here done has been estimated, and we even know who is working on it. But then we can actually move this down or up. I can say, okay, this one should work on here. We'll move it up. We prioritize. If we decide to move this to the next sprint, we'll move it in here. But these are the discussions, and this is how the backlog is managed by who? The product owner. So right here is my idea. This is my detail to now organize. I can start with the features, and I can say, okay, here is a new feature. We scroll down to the back. This is reviews. It's all the way at the back, at the bottom. And I look at reviews and I say, okay, what does it mean for reviews? And I say, well, I really want this application to have reviews. So I'm going to move reviews to the top. We don't need enterprise analytics, so I'm going to move it down. We need technical debt, so I'm going to move it up. HIPAA compliance, we are not really dealing with HIPAA compliance, so I'll move it all the way to the bottom. Alerts and notifications, where every app needs alerts and notifications. We've not started working on it, but I'll move it to the top. This is just an example. And then as I move it, we start discussing more and more about it, and then we create stories for it. And then when we sit for the planning meeting, the question is, what will go into sprint number 16? I put something in sprint 16. Okay, let me remove it. That was not the idea. Move it back to backlog. That's not working. We'll try another way. So as Scrum Masters, you're going to learn how to use Jira. So this is sprint. We want to edit the sprint. We'll try another way. Oh, this is completed in sprint 11. Interesting. So if it's completed, why is it there? We'll try another way. Move to top of backlog. So Jira presents different ways to do things. And when you're hired as a Scrum Master, you'll be asked, are you familiar with Jira? You might say yes, you might say no, but you have to justify it. So if we work with me, you will get familiarized with all of these tools and techniques and how to move things around. But if you are not comfortable with computers, then you want to increase your comfort level and everything becomes easy. So everything is centered around the backlog. We plan the sprint and then we talk, and you, the Scrum Master, would help the team craft their goals, work together, and solve the problems of the team. But this is really what Scrum is. And this is the end to today's presentation and today's lesson. Tomorrow, we'll talk more about the role of the Scrum Master. We'll talk about the duties of the Scrum Master, the duties of the developers and the product owners, etc., etc. So everybody here today is going to receive an invite for tomorrow, and there'll be recording as well made available. And let's see, there's a recording available. And let me open it up for questions or contributions or comments. So if you have any question or contribution or comment, I am willing or interested in your questions or contributions. If you can unmute yourself, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. I'm just going to allow some of the microphones. I am not familiar with, but I'm unmuting everyone. So I'm opening it up for questions. Ask any question you feel like, whether it's related to this material or not. But you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question or use your reaction to let me know that you are interested in asking a question. Go ahead.
Yes, how are you doing,
Go
sir?
ahead, Ike.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I was going to ask based on your training. So in regards to resume, I guess how many years can one definitely put in the resume with the training to determine experience?
Good question. I'll tell you this, and most of you know already, that if you have been in a job for less than 6 months, it is generally frowned upon on your resume. Because of that, I'll encourage the minimum time for anyone to put associated with Q slot to be 6 months. You start the class today, and you finish the training next June. Then you start with the internship. All the time that you're on the internship, you are part of the Q slot Scrum Master team. So that would count. You may not be facilitating, but it doesn't mean you're learning. The program is very flexible and the program is open. And as you learn how to facilitate, we are sharing the opportunity. So I'm going to go by the names on here. Jonathan may be facilitating the Scrum today, the planning meeting tomorrow, but what his decisions he's making, his learning he's doing, we are on the call. We are listening to Jonathan engage with the Scrum Masters, and we are sharing the experience. Which means when it comes time for you to be in the hot seat, we can call it the hot seat, to facilitate the program, the event, you will take everything you learned from Jonathan and you will apply. Which means after 4 months, even though you facilitated 4, 5, 6 events, you still say you have 5 months experience because you have observed, you have learned. Every Friday we'll be meeting to talk about what's happening and what's not happening. So even though you have not really facilitated those events, it doesn't mean you've not learned. It doesn't mean you don't have the experience. So you will put 6 months. Fair enough?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And the longer you stay on as part of the family, the better. What I realize is many people start, they are excited, they engaged, and then they drop off along the way. Life happens and consistency drops. If that happens, it will be difficult for you to transition to get a job. But as long as you're attending, your comfort level will increase. You'll be surprised how comfortable you will be when the time comes. And you either have to facilitate or you have to interview for a job. But 6 months is what I recommend. My flyer generally will say the 4 months, 16 weeks for the hands training, but in reality, that is not enough. It wasn't enough for me. It will not be enough for anyone. You need to be able to observe Scrum in action, watch other Scrum Masters, watch the product owner, facilitate the event for a good period of time to be able to be very, very comfortable. But you can. It's absolutely possible. All right, go ahead, Gena.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for today's lesson. It's been empowering. I want to ask what the requirements are. Is it the requirements are for one to be eligible for the Scrum exam?
The requirements, there are no requirements. As long as you can, actually, let's do this. That's a good question. Let's do this. Let me share my screen a little bit in order to answer that question, and then we'll see. I'm just going to share. I'll start from here. Okay, I'm going to share this, and then I'll open up a new tab, and I'll go to scrum.org. Scrum.org is the organization that certifies PSM1. You've seen PSM1, you may have heard of it. All you need to do is go for certification, get certified, choose the certification you want. They have all the certifications, PSM1, prove your mastery. That is all. As long as you're ready, buy, prepare, or start. That is all. There is no requirement, nothing. Pay their $200, get 85% within 60 minutes out of 80 questions, and you're certified. To do that, you register, and then you have an account, and you can go ahead and pay for the exam. But there is nothing, no education requirement, nothing. And that is why many people are certified, but many people don't have a job, because it's easy to pass the exam, but it's hard to break in, and you need a lot more than just the certificate. You need to have worked in some capacity. You need to have a level of education that enables you to influence people, because a Scrum Master is an influencer. You have to know how to engage and motivate people. So if you have worked with the Girl Scouts for 5 years, and that's all you've done since you left college, you're 25 years old, you work with the Girl Scouts, well, then what do you put on your resume? Enabled 200 Girl Scouts to become Girl Scout certified, facilitated 5 or 6 camps in 5 different states. You do that to show that you can actually facilitate and organize people, planned trips, planned activities, that is what goes on your resume. Then you have your Scrum Master certificate. Then I interview you now and say, okay, tell me about this. If you know what a stand-up is, tell me about planning. You now use your experience with the Girl Scouts as examples to explain the Scrum theory. And I trust that when I hire you, you'll do same with software developers. The difference is I'm not going to offer you $100,000. I'll offer you $80,000. But me with an engineering degree who has worked with software developers for the same job will require $150,000. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
And many of us struggle because we want to make 150,000, want to make a lot of money. And instead of saying, all I've done is work with the Girl Scouts, many people will now say, oh, I work for Citibank, I work for Microsoft, I did this, I have 5 years experience. And then they come to the interview and they'll say, okay, let me know how you help the team manage the backlog. You know what the backlog is, but you've never really done it. So your answer is not appropriate. Certainly does not measure up with someone who has 5 years experience. Even if you know the theory, will you get the job? No. But if you work with the Girl Scouts for 5 years and you helped 200 Girl Scouts get their Girl Scout certification, and you facilitated different events. And then you're asked, let me know how you help your software developers manage the backlog. And you say, well, for the Girl Scouts, I start with management, and we talked about the activities for the Girl Scouts, and I enabled the meetings for them to decide what they wanted to do in every single camp, and I help them maintain a list and prioritize the activities for those Girl Scouts. Will I hire you? Straight away. Because now you understand the concept, you've applied it to Girl Scouts. I know that when you're with software developers, you're going to be asking them the right questions. Because it's not about knowing the work, it's about asking the questions and guiding the team in the direction of completion. The only difference is I'll offer you less money. When I was hired, I was desperate. Remember, I had just lost over $400,000 working on an app. I was married. I had a son that was new. I was desperate for work. I didn't study. I just prepared for the test, took it, passed it, and I started applying. And my pitch was simple. I said, for every interview I went to, I said, if you give me $2 million, I will end this interview now. And I'll go work on my app. However, I need to pay my bills. I need to attend to my wife and my son. So I need this job. This is what I know from my life as an entrepreneur and working with software developers. It didn't take long for me to get a job. I had never worked for Google. I never worked for Microsoft. I didn't have all of that on my resume. I had my military experience on my resume, and I had my own mistakes, my own failures on my resume. The money I raised for my app, $400,000 of money spent. Well, it takes a lot of engagement to raise that much money. Does it demonstrate a skill? Yes, it does, but it doesn't demonstrate Scrum Master skill, but it demonstrates something. So why take that out and put something else? So you leave everything on your resume because it shows qualities that the next person does not have. And then use that to demonstrate the knowledge. You require nothing. Write the exam, pass the exam, get familiar with the concept and tools, and focus on positioning yourself. You need no experience. You can have 0 experience and you can have 2 years worth of experience. And in my program, when you work with these developers, in 6 months, if you're serious, not 6 months of joining a meeting today and skipping 1 month. If you are committed every week, in 6 months, you have 2-3 years worth of experience. Now, on your resume, can you put 3 years worth of experience? If you're confident, yes, you can put it. Your resume, messaging, the text, the wording is important. There's a huge difference between 5 years experience and 5 years worth of experience. So you can say, I have 5 years worth of experience without having 5 years of experience. And that is what I did when I was applying for a job. I stated I have 7 years worth of experience, 8 years worth of experience, because I started working with developers in 2011. So by 2019, I was applying. I didn't say no yet. I had 8 years, 9 years worth of experience, which I could back up. But had I been a Scrum Master for 1 year, 2 years for these companies? No. So it's how you position yourself and the confidence with which you can back it up. That will get you the job. And by the time I'm through with you, there's no interview you go to that you will finish and say, oh, I really did poorly on that interview. No. My goal is for you, even if they don't give you the job, to say they were looking for something else. Or maybe they hired someone who wanted less money. Whatever, but you will not be the problem. Because I've gone to many interviews and I've left feeling like it's their lot, not mine, if I don't get hired. But will you be hired? No guarantee. But when you go for that interview and they don't hire you, do not give up. That is what you need to get from here. Any other question? All right. So all of you who attended, I appreciate. And if there are any questions, feel free to contact me. Send a message. I will try to get in touch with everyone with a message one way or another. following this meeting or following tomorrow's session so that we can maintain contact. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, we can do so. You're not connected on Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever means to communicate, because your journey must continue and will continue slowly but surely. It is not an immediate thing. If you are learning to expect to be a Scrum Master tomorrow, I'm not the right person to help you. It is a journey. If you're already certified and you've been certified for 1, 2, 3 years, understand that this is a new beginning. You have not met anyone like me. You've never had an opportunity to learn from someone who has the background or the experience to bring it all together. So tomorrow is going to be very, very interesting. You're going to be motivated and excited from what you learn and the tips we go through. We are going to go through the interviewing process, the resume process, improving your resume, adapting your resume irrespective of your background, which is a stumbling block to many people. They are forced to change their resume to be someone else, and you cannot back it up. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to actually make the most out of the experience that you can get before you actually get that job, so that when you are hired, day one, you are confident. This is what I would do. This is how I will do it. Because there are many people who are certified who, if hired, they don't even know what their first day should be like or where they will go, what they will do. The idea is to demystify the entire process and experience of being a Scrum Master so that it can flow naturally and you can make that money, because there's a lot of money to be made. And if you're in Africa, Africa is a virgin market. In the next 4 or 5 years, the demand will be huge. So tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow. I'll connect with you. It will be interesting. You'll get the invite, and we'll continue tomorrow, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Rest well, and go on YouTube, read what you can, refresh what you can. We'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.